This is United Network News with Sunny Galt, Calen, Kimberly Gogan, and our field messengers from around the world. Here's today's real news.
In many developing areas, getting clean water is a big challenge because there's no proper water infrastructure. People often rely on polluted water sources, leading to serious health issues like waterborne diseases. While traditional treatment systems are costly, innovative solutions are making a real difference.
Providing clean water in developing countries isn't easy. It takes smart solutions, sustainable ideas, and a whole lot of heart. For example, in Kibera, a neighborhood in the Kenyan capital of Nairobi, access to clean water is a constant struggle. With no government infrastructure, many rely on illegal water connections that often mix with sewage, creating serious health risks. But in 2012, a local grassroots organization called Shining Hope for Communities, or SHOFCO, introduced an aerial piping system that's been a game changer. Using elevated pipes to deliver treated water from a borehole to kiosks, this system reduces breakage, vandalism, and contamination. Local residents sell the water at affordable prices, making it safer or more reliable for the community. By working with health and county officials, they've drastically reduced diarrhea-related diseases in the areas they serve. Clean water isn't just improving lives, it's saving them.
This is Kibera slum in Nairobi. Pipes with fresh water run through sewer tunnels. For a long time, residents have been suffering under these unhygienic conditions. But there is hope. Now a connection of blue pipes run above the slum's shanties. They provide residents with clean and cheap water, all thanks to Kennedy Odede. Having grown up in Kibera and experienced the effects of unsafe water firsthand, Kennedy Odede founded the NGO SHOFCO. The price of water reduced to 1/5 of the former price, and the quality is better. To ensure the water meets the safety standards, Kennedy installed a water purifying system. It's the only one in the Kibera slum.
So the water comes from the borehole. Borehole is pumped to the raw water tank outside, which is 24,000 liters, comes in to be treated. So now the water is now drinkable. And then we pump it now to the bigger tank.
From here, the water is then distributed.
Fog harvesting is a creative and sustainable way to collect clean water by capturing moisture from the air. Using special nets or collectors, this method works especially well in areas with frequent fog, cool temperatures, and high humidity. It's a simple yet effective solution for places with little rainfall, offering a real chance to make a difference where water is scarce. This technique provides an eco-friendly water source and reduces reliance on shrinking groundwater and surface water supplies. It's even been used to support reforestation efforts, helping young trees grow faster and survive better. In places like the Canary Islands, Barcelona, and Chile, innovative fog catchers inspired by pine needles are making dry forests thrive. These designs allow air to flow freely, standing up to strong winds, and efficiently pull water from the air. Meanwhile, traditional fog nets have been used for years in areas like the Atacama Desert in Chile and the Atlas Mountains in North Africa to gather water from passing fog.
Ever notice those water droplets on a cold drink? Turns out we can use this phenomenon to harvest drinking water from the air on a large scale. In Morocco, these spiderweb-like structures do exactly that. In the hilly Ait Bamram region, there's little rain, but lots of fog, which is basically air with teeny tiny droplets of water in it. When the fog hits the webs, these bigger water droplets form. They drip down and run into large underground deposits. Call it the magic of condensation. Humidity in the air becomes liquid when cooled, just like air on the outside of that cold drink. People here harvest up to 35,000 liters of water with these fog catchers every day, enough for a whole village.
Access to clean water also becomes a huge challenge in the aftermath of disasters like hurricanes and floods. Millions of people, even in the United States, struggle to find safe drinking water during these times. This is where innovative solutions can make a life-changing difference. Take U.S. Army veteran and engineer Moses West, for example. He developed an atmospheric water generator that literally pulls clean water from the air, offering a solution for communities without access to safe drinking water. His device has been used on 9 missions in areas that have faced disasters or are in dire need of water, including Flint, Michigan, which received more than 3,000 gallons of water daily, and Puerto Rico.
This guy has designed a machine that creates clean drinking water from thin air, and he gives it away to people who need it for free. This is Moses West, and here's how his magical machine works. First, it pulls in air from the surrounding environment that it then cools down, similar to a refrigerator. This cooling turns the air's moisture into water droplets that can then be collected in a big storage tank. It's like making a small rain cloud inside the machine. This process is called atmospheric water generation, and Moses is using it to make sure that everyone has access to clean water, no matter where they live, how old they are, or how much money they have. 1 in 4 people don't have access to clean drinking water, and setting up infrastructure in many remote communities can be tricky and really costly. So innovations like Moses' machine could be the key to making clean water more available all over the world.
Clean water is a basic human right, but millions of people still don't have access to it. Without safe and reliable water, health problems grow, poverty continues, and communities struggle to move forward. Innovative solutions like these show that change is possible, one step at a time.
A community in southern Germany is situated near an iodine-rich spring, which was used therapeutically in the 19th century to treat conditions like gout. UNN Field Messenger Sophia explores the interesting history of this special place.
This is Sophia, Field Messenger for United Network News. During my visit in Germany, I have met old friends at what is called Gemeinschaft Sulzbrunn, or Community Sulzbrunn, in Oberallgäu in the south of Germany, close to the Alps. This Sulzberg spring was described as one of the purest iodine waters in Europe, as it contains only small traces of bromine. In 1815, a health resort for illnesses such as for high blood pressure, inflammation, skin and metabolic diseases, as well as vascular diseases was found. After several changes of ownership, in 1960, the so-called mother house of the Diakonia, Hensolshöhe, took over the property and converted it into a sanatorium for Adig. Since 2015, the site has been used by the present Sulzbrunn ecological multi-generational community, which also plans to use the iodine spring again. A special form of therapy in Sulzbrunn was the drinking cure with iodine-containing whey milk and cumin. For this, iodine-containing mineral water was given to the cows and goats in their throes, and the milk was then used therapeutically. Iodine tablets were also produced from the water of the spring and sold in pharmacies until the beginning of the 20th century.
So this is a mini exhibition of how it looks down here, down in the spring. So this is the microfilm, and this is the spring and its underground room, and some of the colors that you can see from the minerals and chemicals. So yeah, it's a fairly small spring. It's only about 4,800 liters per day that is coming out of the various springs. And when this was rediscovered in the early 19th century, this is why people came here, why a clinic was built here to cure gout.
Okay.
No, gout. Goiter. No, gout. Goiter, which some of the people then in this area had because of the iodine, the little iodine content of the food. And back then, nowadays it's common in foods, but at the time it wasn't at all.
And this is Sophia, and I hope you like this first part of Gemeinde Sulzbrunn.
The Kikalu Rock Hill is a site of cultural and historical significance in eastern Uganda. UNN Field Messenger Diane takes us to the official opening of this tourist attraction.
Hello, this is Diane, Field Messenger for United Network News, reporting from eastern Uganda. Recently in the Pasoga region, the chieftain promoted several tourist sites and a group of us took a 2-hour bus trip to go and see the official opening to the public. As today was a celebration, we were dressed in traditional gomos. On arrival to the site, we are greeted by skilled children doing traditional dancing. As this site was officially being opened and celebrated, it was in attendance by the First Deputy Prime Minister. And we can see here the Parliament official giving out 5,000 shillings to the young dancers as they entertain the guests. Next drawing our attention were a group of ladies playing tunes from handcrafted flutes. They had just come from the cave area, and it is said that these are the ones that talked to the ancestors through the sound vibrations that are being played on their instruments. Looking up, we can see the spiritual lady of the rock. Along a pathway, we did run into a young man wearing traditional bark clothing. Material was made from the bark of the tree, and he is showing us that on his hat and on the side of his clothing are shells. These are an expression of the Ugandan culture. We did come across a scene when the lady of the cave and the man wearing traditional bark clothing came together for a moment. They were speaking to each other in loud primal sounds, exchanging the vibrations in expression, as it would have been in the earlier times before the language. That's all we had for today. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.
Seasonal workers are essential to the United Kingdom's farming industry, but many face serious exploitation under the current visa system. Standing up to these abuses is tough, and surprisingly, only 2 workers have taken their cases to a tribunal.
Suing employers in the UK is a tough challenge for many workers. Legal aid rarely covers employment disputes, and employers win most tribunal cases, especially when workers lack legal support. For seasonal workers, it's an even bigger challenge. Legal experts are saying overseas workers face many challenges at tribunals, like short visas, language barriers, and limited legal advice. Many reports reveal serious exploitation, including illegal recruitment fees up to £7,500, more than $9,300, verbal abuse, physical assault, and unsafe living conditions, like freezing caravans. Although the government has inspected hundreds of farms and interviewed thousands of workers, only one recruiter has lost its license due to poor pay and working conditions. Seasonal worker visas allow workers to stay in the UK for up to 6 months, but tribunal backlogs can delay cases for up to 2 years. This often means workers must give evidence from abroad. However, since 2022, workers can only provide oral evidence remotely if the UK has an agreement with their home country. With 95% of seasonal workers coming from countries without such agreements, Only 5 of 123 remote evidence requests have been approved, according to a Freedom of Information request. A 2024 report by the Ethical Trading Initiative shows gaps in reporting mechanisms for agricultural workers across Europe, with many workers fearing retaliation and lacking awareness of what they can report.
With damp and mould growing on the walls, this old, leaky caravan is what seasonal farm workers coming to the UK are expected to live in for the 6 months they're here. Footage we've obtained shows windows in a state of disrepair, the furniture stained, the heater doesn't work. Even the toilet here is broken. This place is called Leebank Nursery in Essex, and the footage is filmed by farm workers from Central Asia here to grow and pick aubergines. They're charged £300 a month per person to live like this. It comes out of their minimum wage pay, and 3 workers have to share 2 beds.
The caravan was disgusting and cold. There weren't even enough beds. I had to sleep sitting on a chair. Then they gave me an old sofa from the barn. That smelled of cat urine. If we complained, they told us this is all that was available for us. Sometimes they were shouting at us, telling us to work faster, even though we were at the limit of our capabilities. The relationship felt like slaves.
The owner of Leebank Nursery has denied the allegations we put to him. We shared our findings with the labour provider for this farm. They told us the seasonal workers have since been transferred elsewhere, and they've reported these conditions to the Home Office.
The seasonal worker scheme allows migrant workers to fill labour gaps in the UK's horticulture and poultry sectors. Data shows since its start in 2019, it has grown from 2,500 to 45,000 visas for horticulture in 2023, plus 2,000 for poultry. Most workers come from Central and Southeast Asia, including Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, and Indonesia, helping address post-Brexit labor shortages. The UK government has announced it's extending the seasonal worker visa route until 2029 to help businesses plan, invest in automation, and reduce reliance on migrant labor. In 2025, 43,000 visas will be allocated to horticulture and 2,000 to poultry, with future numbers for 2026 to 2029 to be announced later. This includes a reduction of 2,000 visas and removing the extra 10,000 previously available if needed. The government also plans to make food and farming jobs more appealing to domestic workers through regional recruitment strategies and partnerships with industry and education.
In the Garden of England, this berry farm stretches for miles across some of the most fertile land in the UK. Inside, the pace is quick and the fruit plentiful, but what it lacks is enough workers to pick the crop.
All my workers used to come from Eastern Europe, and when you go back, British government didn't let them to come into the country, and we losing about £1.5 million.
The end of the freedom of movement with the EU isn't the only problem.
I can't pick it because I haven't got the staff, and that is what's happened in the last 3 years. So you've had Brexit, freedom of movement, you've had COVID, knock-on effect. Then we had, obviously, the Ukrainian war. We trained up staff. We lost that trained staff because of the war.
These issues working up a perfect storm of labour shortages that the National Farmers Union says caused production to be cut by a third in some businesses since 2020. And though the government introduced a 6-month seasonal workers visa, farmers here say it's not enough.
At the moment, for my industry, we've got 45,000 licenses, seasonal workers licenses that are coming in. Do we need that? Yes. Do we need double that? We're 100% need. We're growing more. We're getting better at growing. If we're getting better at growing, we need the manpower to help us grow.
But politicians, both in office and in opposition, have vowed to reduce immigration, not bring more people in.
In the UK, seasonal workers are expected to cover most, if not all, of their recruitment costs. That's not the case in other countries. In the US, for example, employers or recruiters aren't allowed to charge workers any fees for job placement under the H-2A visa, the program for temporary agricultural workers. In Australia and Canada, these costs are shared between employers and the government.
The challenges faced by seasonal workers in the UK highlight the urgent need for stronger protections and fairer systems. Without better oversight and support, many workers will continue to face exploitation and unsafe conditions. Science is supposed to help us make sense of the world, guide decisions, and improve lives. But what happens when some of that research isn't as honest as it should be? The truth is, faked or manipulated research data is more common than you might think, and it's causing real problems in the scientific community and beyond.
Faked research data occurs when researchers mess with the numbers or even make things up to make their studies look better. But it's not just researchers who can be dishonest. Sometimes participants in studies don't tell the truth either. Whether they exaggerate symptoms, give answers they think researchers want to hear, or leave out important details, this can skew the results just as much. Why does it happen? Well, pressure plays a role for both sides. Researchers may feel the need to publish papers to secure funding, promotions, or tenure, while participants might lie for personal gain, like qualifying for a study or receiving a financial incentive. In 2023, the president of Stanford University resigned after a report found data manipulation in his neuroscientific papers.
So in case you didn't know, the president of Stanford was actually involved in a massive scandal recently. So he's a neuroscientist, and it turns out that in his papers, he was photoshopping photos of neurons and the brain in his papers to make it look like he was getting results that he actually wasn't. It was a massive scandal. He had to have a bunch of papers retracted or heavily amended, and it ended up him having to step down as president of the university. But the crazy part is that he wasn't actually fully fired. Instead, he's going to stay on as a tenured professor of Stanford, still be allowed to run his labs despite all of these findings coming out about his research.
And that's just the tip of the iceberg. In 2020, Francesca Gino, a professor at Harvard, got caught up in a major research fraud scandal when she was accused of falsifying data in several studies on behavioral science, ironically around topics like dishonesty and moral behavior. After an investigation, it turned out some of her results were completely fabricated, leading to the retraction of several of her papers and a serious blow to her reputation. In a similar situation, Hao-Yan Wang, a researcher in the field of Alzheimer's, faced charges in 2024 for manipulating data in a clinical trial for an Alzheimer's drug. His actions raised doubts about the credibility of his research and the legitimacy of the funding he had secured for his studies. According to PubMed, a free medical article database maintained by the U.S. National Library of Medicine, more than 10,000 research papers were retracted in 2023, a new record.
We have had fraud case after fraud case being unveiled in the U.S., in the Netherlands, indeed around the world. There are many journals complicit. They will publish what you pay them to publish. They don't really do careful peer review. My colleague, Ivan Aransky, runs a center here in my program at NYU called Retraction Watch. He thinks there are tens of thousands more papers to be yet to be discovered that are fraudulent. And for viewers thinking about this saying, well, that's a science problem, as you started to say, Brent, it's not a victimless crime. Doctors base their treatments on the published literature. Patients try to look at the journals to see where the latest research might be for their disease that might help them. If this kind of falsity gets into the literature, it really hurts people with diseases and it really fouls up their best treatment.
False data doesn't always come from intentional fraud. It can also happen when people misrepresent themselves. Imposter participants, or those who fake their identities or exaggerate their experiences to join online studies, are becoming a bigger concern for researchers. In qualitative research, especially when researchers rely on interviews to understand real-life perspectives, these imposters can throw things off by using fake names, email addresses, and phone numbers, or even hiding their locations with IP address proxies. For example, in a health services study on pediatric neurodevelopmental care, many participants recruited through a Facebook ad turned out to be imposters. They used different IP addresses and claimed to be from various countries, which was caught through inconsistencies in their geographic data. To spot false academic research, look for red flags like unclear or mismatched methodology, perfect or repeated data that doesn't make sense, and unexplained outliers. Be cautious if the research focuses too much on sensational results or doesn't provide access to raw data. Suspicious authorship patterns and a history of retracted papers are also signs to watch out for. These can all indicate the research might not be reliable.
If you're working in a research-oriented environment where you have to read research articles and then either try to reproduce the data or you just come up with the ideas, you know what I'm going to talk about. And that is, most of those published papers and most of the data presented in those published papers is not reproducible. And I'm going to tell you based on my experience, and I've tried really hard to follow it to the letter, but I was unable to reproduce the data. That's not the irony. Everyone knows that the papers published or the data published in the papers is just for the sake of publication. But the bigger question is, why are we doing it? Why the PhDs? Why the research is just focused on publishing papers, knowing the fact that that data is not reproducible?
False research data isn't just a problem for scientists. It affects everyone. When bad data leads to bad decisions, it can hurt public health, waste resources, and erode trust in science. It's up to researchers, institutions, and policymakers to work together to build a culture of honesty and accountability. After all, science should be about discovering the truth, not inventing it.
Tashka Urban has created the Voice Keys method, a distinctive technique that combines musical scales with chakra energy. She guides people in harmonizing their energy and unlocking their full potential. UNN Field Messenger Keza M interviews Tashka to discuss her innovative work.
G'day, it's Keza M. I'm at the Conscious Hearts Rising Centre and we've just had a singing lesson with Tashka Urban. I am putting a report through United Network News as a field messenger. Welcome, Tashka.
My purpose on this planet is to awaken the full expression of each being in a clear vessel where our frequency is flowing free and open and able to activate all the beings around them in our full legacy of who we are and what we are all here to do together, like a symphony. The Voice Keys is a series that I have developed which loosely aligns to both the keys of a musical scale and the chakras and the body systems in our own vessel and being. So just like instruments need tuning, so do we. And so the Voice Keys is for everyone because we are all an instrument, and frequency is the fundamentals of the universe. So when we understand how to move our own frequency and map it, send that energy out, work with it, then we're able to activate a life that is true to us, which resonates and rings true to others and connects to the greater whole. The chakras are a name for the different hotspots of energy where we have clusters of cells and neurons and organs working to do their thing. So the solar plexus is actually a physical thing where our ganglia all connect, and the chakras in particular can be, like I talked about with the musical scale, as if we have each of these notes. If one of them is a bit stuck or blocked, it doesn't really ring true. And when you get to move that blockage, now it resonates to the whole. And so when we can actually tune ourselves where we aren't having any of those blockages, none of the layers are in the way, we get to bring our sound to the world. And as I say, our words cut through and we ring true. The world feels us.
So much.
UNN is changing the face of news. Join us for our weekly Field Messenger meetings and learn how you can make a difference. Visit unitednetwork.earth for more information. Thanks for watching.